Instead of having some kind of weird opening to this video, I am doing a Klaire Fluffle rarity and having a question of the day instead. What is your favorite Kirby Copy ability? Let me know in the comments. You don't mind parasols if you want some brownie points, you know, just saying. Anyways, on with the video. I hosted a Kirby Copy Ability tournament. Well, I know, that's the title. Get on with the video. But I have to set the scene, build up to how the tournament went and how every ability did. And like always, toss in a like the video and subscribe message in there for those who like what they're watching. Okay, alright, we'll get started. I guess there really isn't much to build up here. It's a tournament with Kirby Copy Abilities. I didn't include normal Kirby or any that don't appear in the game, so there's that. This could build up, right? Good enough? Well, hopefully it is. To actually explain this tournament in, wow, getting an explanation already? This is record time for a Klaire Fluffle video. How exactly did it work? Well, given that there are 68 copy abilities that have appeared in the games, again, discounting normal, I know that funny number was right there, which is apparently 71 according to Pizza Tower. Amazing game, by the way, you should play it. I broke the copy abilities into groups of 4 and polled them against each other using YouTube community polls in my community tab. Every day for 11 hours, polls would last, and we'd see which abilities came out on top. For a while, the top 2 advanced, but once we reached top 16, we started doing 1v1, so obviously only one ability advanced. Imagine having a poll with 2 options and both of them advanced. Kinda sussy. And of course, the results of this tournament were voted on by my community. It should be no surprise that I'm not a huge content creator or anything, so these polls usually only averaged like 400 to 600 votes, which by YouTube standards, kinda iffy, but the fact that more than 400 people were willing to vote in my silly little tournament made me very happy. Online numbers can trick our minds into thinking 400 is a small number, but it's actually kind of insane. I wanted to thank everybody who voted, left comments, hyped up the tournament in my Discord, drew art for it. The whole thing was a blast, and I'm very happy I went through with the idea. And while I can't claim to be a master of everything with all of these abilities, I do have footage in the background of relevant abilities as they go by. That is speedrunning. Hopefully you can learn a thing or two about what makes some abilities super cool, and still stick to the typical theme that I have of, oh yeah, all my stuff is about speedrunning. Just don't expect me to actually be talking about the speedrunning stuff. You can just look at the footage if you want to see how the ability in question is doing. And one last note before we begin on the topic of being thankful, I wanted to thank all of my puptrons on Patreon for their support. If you'd like to help out too, check out the link in the description for neat perks, including early access to all of videos like this. Special thanks to my head-patting Fluffle fan puptrons, Biohazard, Tyke the Serval but like strawberry Pop-Tarts, Lydia Scribe, and remember, Miss K says, Pew! I love you all! So Late Kirby has only appeared in 2 games, Kirby's Adventure and Kirby Nightmare Inn. I know I just said this, but I love you all. Round 1 began not with a whimper, but a doctor. Coming into this whole thing, there were some abilities I kind of expected to dominate, and Animal most certainly was one of them. It's a huge fan favorite for a reason, and its opponents were Burning, Wrestler, and Doctor. I kind of expected Burning to fizzle out, while Wrestler did respectably well, and then Doctor eventually taking second. That's not what happened. In a 4-way battle, Doctor did insane and took nearly 50% of the votes in the whole poll. And sure, Animal got nearly 30, while Wrestler and Burning kind of did their own thing. But Doctor, it just went crazy. And I love Doctor. It's super cute and even better against bosses for speedrunning. I know I said I wasn't going to talk about speedrunning, but can you really trust me when it comes to that? Speedrunning could have been something to do with this. I do talk about how dummy good Doctor is versus bosses in Robobot more than I talk about Animal, so who knows. Things slowed down a bit from there. The second group's results were very obvious, and Cupid and Jelly weren't going to be doing very much, and well, Circus definitely did a lot better than I was expecting. Sand, again, getting nearly half the votes, not a surprise. Speaking of no surprise, Mirror was in the poll after that, and if you know one thing about this community, is that Mirror kinda sorta always pops off. It got almost 60% of the votes in its round, and against better competition than what Sand was against. Sure, Freeze is nothing, but Spear and Cleaning? not bad, and neither of them hit 20% of the votes. Very impressive. This had nothing to do with speedrunning, though, I can tell, because Mirror... Actually, let's not talk about that one. What absolutely had to do with speedrunning was the battle that came next. Ball, Jet, Stone, and Spider. Now, believe it or not, I actually love Spider, and it taking a comfortable second made me very happy. It's just a really fun ability, and while this video is a long ways away, it was one of the most fun ability solos to do for Star Allies' Soul Melter EX. It's just so cool. But on the other hand, especially on this channel, my community kinda stands Ball. You know, puppy girl and all that, but I've also made, like, I don't know, at least 3 different videos talking about why Ball is so good for Kirby speedruns. And then there's Jet, which obviously needs no explanation at this point. Ball wound up doing nothing and getting a distant third, but it looked better than Stone here, so I guess there's that. I can confirm that I would rather play with a Ball than a Rock, so I would say you guys made the right choice, even if neither moved on. Not much to say on the next round. UFO did insanely well, and ESP did alright, but the round after was nuts. That said, it wasn't the battle for first. Ranger dominated, and Light the opposite, but Staff and Plasma were neck and neck all day. This actually mattered, since the loser was eliminated entirely from the tournament. And I'll be real, I thought Plasma was gonna be the clear victor, but it just wasn't. The Staff managed to pull through and make it to round 2, not at all what I expected. The next round was a lot cleaner, with Fighter easily taking first, but by all accounts, I was shocked that Bubble managed to take second over Paint and Metal. Well, maybe Metal, not so much. I love it a lot, and Metal Percent is the funniest speedrun of all Metal, but it's not the most well-liked in the community. The Paint surprised me, though, because it's a KSS or KSSU ability that makes Captain Bull go Rasa, Blassa, Farasa. Truly, he was an Englishman of our time. I love the heck out of Bubble, though, so I was very happy with this. Then came the big one, for me at least. I'll talk about that part soon enough, but I will say Missile did better than I thought it would. Breaking 10, almost 15% against the not backdrop competition is very impressive. And it's not my favorite copy ability, but Ice is my 3rd favorite copy ability, so seeing it do this well against the competition did make me happy. But, okay, yeah, Parasol was here, and it won, and I was one happy pup. I won't lie about why Parasol did as well as it did. Cute Puppy Girl's favorite ability is Parasol. She begs people to vote for it, so people voted for it. That said, I think it still would have beaten Ice without my influence, although who can really say for sure, right? I guess let me know in the comments what you think about Parasol, and it better be good! Not much to say on the next round, although Drill doing worse than Mike was something. We also got to see the strength of Beam Attack, which frankly was insane. Afterwards, a ninja cleaned house while, Fire and Ghost tied. I wound up holding a tiebreaker poll later on with just Fire and Ghost to see who would advance, and while I love Ghost, I'm gonna assume it's my channel. People knew about how dummy good Fire is for speedrunning and voted for that one because of that. I actually 100% don't believe people care enough about speedrunning when looking at a copy ability tournament, but I can believe what I want to believe, okay? As for the next round, I'm gonna focus on Needle here. The Smash won, Water got a close win over Magic, yeah. But Needle did really badly and made me really sad because I like Needle a lot. I would give Needle a hug, but I imagine that would immensely hurt, so I'm just gonna keep saying that I love Needle, do nothing about the loss, and move on to the next round. Speaking of that next round, it really surprised me. I figured between Beetle, Whip, Leaf, and Balloon, the more modern trio would be pretty close, and Balloon would obviously crush all 3 of them. To explain why I thought that way, this is a gag. Anyways, that's not at all what happened. Balloon obviously got destroyed, but Beetle, it took almost 55% of the vote. The Leaf and Whip also weren't that close, with about a 10% gap between the two. And obviously, that's about as far removed from a yeehaw moment as you can get, because Whip lost, but still, go Beetle! And nobody knew if it was just weak competition or Beetle being insane, but it's still really good. Now, moving on, for proof this tournament actually has nothing to do with speedrunning, Wing lost in round 1. Belle, of all things, managed to take first this poll, which is great because I love Belle. But the strongest opponent for one of the best abilities in all of Kirby speedrunning was Sleep. And I wouldn't have it any other way. From there, Yo-Yo won the next round, but it wasn't really that good, and this is not normal. Looking at the later rounds and general fan perception, I've got no idea what happened here. Mecha and Hammer kept it close too, but Mecha took the win, the second dub for Return Deluxe. You love to see it. You don't love to see poor Cutter only get 6% of the votes. It's honestly my favorite of this group by a landslide, so it made me very sad to see it do so poorly, but you know what? Reality doesn't sting like a cut, it bites. Like, Yo-Yo? I kind of lost my point there. Speaking of sad puppy, Bomb is my second favorite ability in the series, and it lost bad in the next round. It beat Festival, cool, but Archer and Tornado did way better. Archer doing so good definitely confirmed that the Triple Deluxe original abilities were gonna be cracked in this tournament, and yeah, I mean, I like all 4 of them, so I was fine with that. I'll also pretend that Tornado did so good because of speedrunning and Kirby's Adventure, and make this channel feel larger than it actually is, boost my ego a little bit, stuff like that. The next round consisted of the Scrub Squad with nearly no fan favorite abilities, just taking up space. It did mean that Laser got to move to round 2, which I thought was really funny. The clear winner here was obviously Artist, getting over 60% of the votes. Enjoy this while it lasts, fans of Artists. Enjoy it while it lasts. Lastly, for the final fight of round 1, Throw and Poison were kind of in the pool. The Throw lost big time and Poison won big time. Not surprised, my most popular video still is the Poison ability spotlight. That's almost at 100,000 views. Can you believe that? I sure can't. Anyway, the battle for second was between Wheel and, oh, my favorite, Sword. And you know what? Sword managed to look really good and really bad at the same time. It lost really badly to Poison, and it just managed to get the win over Wheel, but it still did it. Plus, it's hard to tell if people wanted to vote for it more or less based on my own thoughts about it. Regardless, it won, Wheel lost, Puppy sad. Moving on. With that, round 1 was over, and we lost a whopping 34 abilities in the process. Some fodder, some favorites, but which abilities were going to be able to survive the brutal battlefield of round 2? Well, to be honest, round 2 was more so getting rid of the upsets and the cute second place victories from round 1. It was generally less exciting, and very little in the way of important upsets. For example, the poll that started us off, the Doctor did honestly much better than you'd expect. Sand isn't nearly as strong as it was looking in round 1. Animal looked like it was coming close to winning second, but before long, it was more concerned about whether or not it could beat Circus, which, I mean, I guess it did. The Circus honestly looked better than Animal and Sand here, and it got last place. Circus based. Next, Mirror continued to dominate, getting 50% of the votes, as well as the notion of, well, guess we know who's winning this tournament then. But Cleaning and Jet managed to have an interesting fight for second place. Jet barely took it, but Cleaning put up a great fight. Spider did better than I expected. Afterwards was a pretty clean UFO sweep, but it made Ranger look bad. You know, Ranger, Kirby with the gun from Forgotten Land. UFO got 10% more of the votes than it did, which is so wild to see. And for what it's worth, even though it didn't matter, Staff and ESP provided a fun battle for third, which Staff, unlike last time, didn't pull through and got fourth. Then came the one I was personally the most nervous about. How is Parasol gonna look against an easy fan favorite like Fighter? Turns out, really good. Fighter still took an easy second, but I gotta say, props to Bubble for getting 13% of the votes here. Truth be told, I remember it being a lot higher early on. It actually could have beaten Ice for third if it got some extra support. It only made it to round 2, but Bubble, in general, looked really good here, and I am happy with that. Not as happy as I am with Parasol's performance, but what can you do? The round after was pretty basic. Suplex beating Fire was weird to me, but it was for third, so it didn't really matter. Beam looked insane against Ninja, though, or Ninjas, as I typoed it. Oops. After that, Beetle continued to look good, but lost really badly to Smash. The TDX abilities sadly kind of fell off in round 2, which you absolutely do not love to see, but if nothing else, Beetle managed to make it to round 3, and that is super neat. That being said, the next fight of the tournament was absolutely one of the highlights of the whole thing. These final numbers don't lie. Yo-Yo won, but it still wasn't looking all that good, considering it's Yo-Yo, but that didn't matter. Last place, Mecha getting 20% of the votes, and a 4-way poll is nuts. Props for that, and while it was relevant for the whole thing, the real fight was between Bell and Sleep. Sleep, as a meme, always has potential to do crazy things in polls like these, and seeing other TDX abilities struggle in round 2 was bad news for Bell. This fight was intense, and the two abilities traded places throughout the day, but with one getting 21% of the votes and the other 22%, Bell managed to pull it off. Sleep actually did really poorly early on, which led to it having to make a comeback, and with some more time, it maybe could have finished pulling it off, or I don't know, who knows, maybe Mecha could have gotten a spur and placed second instead. This was insanely close, and looking back, I absolutely wonder how things would have been different if a lesser ability than Yo-Yo was the 4th ability in this poll. Imagine the insanity here if instead of Yo-Yo, it was Circus or Wheel or something like that. The final 2 polls had to be 3-way since I didn't want to do any 1v1 polls until top 16, but they weren't quite as interesting. Poison and Tornado easily won their respective polls, and while Sword easily won second over Laser, real impressive there, pal, Archer and Artist kept it surprisingly close. The Artist never really took the lead or kept it close at all. It was actually really unimpressive and boring and how little the poll changed. And, well, if there is one thing that did change, it was that Poison's lead actually got bigger, which, oh yeah, you love to see that. With Laser and Artist out, I held the final 4-way poll to see which of the 4 abilities would move on. No surprise, it was Poison and Tornado, but if nothing else, Archer pulled out a win against Sword. Yay! That makes me happy. But with that, all of the fodder was out, and we got to move on to the top 16. And starting us off, Doctor did a mean number on Sand. But first, have you ever wondered what I smell like? Hey, don't click off the video, I promise this isn't anything weird. I'm just saying, if you want to know my scent, I have a candle. It is called the Vanilla Fluffle Scented Candle, and I think it came out really, really well. At the checkout, you can either decide to get a normal candle or one with a wooden wick if you like to hear that crackling sound. I don't think that's it, but that's the sound that I wanted to make in the moment. Not only is this website a trusted source, and you can have a little more Fluffle in the house, and if you use the link in the description down there, you will also be supporting me for no extra cost. Thank you very much again to Candle for this opportunity. This isn't a sponsored video or anything, I just wanted to let you guys know I have a candle now. Now, on with the video. 68% is really good. And while Sand never looked amazing or anything, it got to the top 16, so it's gotta be good enough. Seeing this was crazy, and certainly gave it potential to put up a fight against the Mirror, which, almost broke 75% on Jet. Oh, as a speedrunner, this one, really hurt, but once again, if this wasn't proof enough that Mirror had this whole thing in the bag, there you go. Jet is not a joke. People genuinely love it, but Mirror is on a whole other level. The next 2 rounds were kinda confusing, if I'm being honest. Not in the results, those were to be expected. UFO beat Ranger and Parasol beat Fighter. Yay! They both pulled similar numbers, Parasol doing a little bit better against stronger competition. This inevitably would lead to a close match in top 8, with, logically, Parasol coming out on top. Cool, obviously I'm happy, that's my ideal situation, but make a mental note of this, force the sticky note into your brain about this, or we'll be coming back to it before long. Next on the list, Beam Attack once again proved dominant, getting nearly 60% of the vote against Ninja. This, compared to how Smash did against Beetle, which got 54% of the vote, made for a very unpredictable round of top 8. Sure, Triple Deluxe abilities fell off hard in round 2, but Beetle still made it to round 3. It still looked solid enough. Meanwhile, Beam did better against Ninja, but you could absolutely argue which of the two losers were doing better thus far. It was genuinely hard to tell if Smash or Beam was going to be stronger, which is super fun. Honestly, everything here was looking unpredictable, aside from Mirror's obvious dominance. That's great, given how Yo-Yo and Bell have been performing so far. This is sure to be an exciting... Yo-Yo got 71% of the votes? I don't know what took Yo-Yo so long to wake up, but it destroyed Bell here. It wasn't quite pulling Mirror numbers yet, but honestly, out of nowhere, Yo-Yo was kind of starting to look like maybe it could do it. And I know the TDX abilities were only looking worse after round 1, but Beetle still put up a good fight against Smash. Was Bell really that much weaker? Or was Yo-Yo just suddenly going that insane? It was hard to tell, but at the very least, my eyes were glued to the next poll to see if either Poison or Tornado could take Yo-Yo down. This poll had to last 3 days. This, for my money, was the best match of the whole tournament. Far and away, my favorite, if nothing else. Pretty much right away, Poison and Tornado both got super close to each other. For a few hours, the two were going back and forth, one of them just barely managing to climb to 51% before the other one would drag it back down and rinse repeating the cycle. It was pretty hectic, and then it finally happened. 50%, tied. But, okay, whatever. They just go back to being 51% at some point, right? To go back and forth at 51%, you have to be at 50% eventually, right? But no, they stuck, and stuck, and stuck at 50%. And this is a 1v1, just making another poll isn't gonna change anything. The day ended, they were still at 50%, so I decided, why not? I'll give it another day, see how it goes. Sure enough, the two didn't budge. Hours passed, votes did in fact keep coming in, and the two were still deadlocked at 50% each. On my Discord server, people were going insane. And while I frankly couldn't blame them, I was starting to get worried this deadlock would actually, never end. But come on, there's no way it can last 3 days. It's gotta end at some point, right? So I gave it one more day, went to bed, and woke up to them still being tied. Good grief. Having enough, I decided to play things a little bit dirty. If you were around back in the day for GameFAQs character battles, you may remember when Reddit started rallying for their characters to win over more GameFAQs favorites. This only really worked once or twice, but when it did, it was very contentious. So I went evil puppy mode and started asking friends to vote in my polls. At first, I just kind of asked them to vote, harmless boosting my own numbers, all that good stuff, but the more I asked, the more I got worried that they just split the votes again, which is when I went to the ultimate dark side. Of course, I love Tornado. It's an amazing speedrun ability and it's the entire meta for Adventure, one of my favorite games in the series. But Poison, 100,000 views on a video? Come on, you know, I gotta rally for that one. Sure enough, after I got nearly 15 additional votes, the numbers were finally swayed. Poison won, and I ended the vote there, because if one more person voted Tornado, we'd be back at it again, and we needed this tournament to finally get a move on. So, dirty or clean, Poison won. Yay! So despite what I just said, Top 8 started 3 weeks after things got hectic during the holidays, and I kind of sort of put this off for a while. But in those 3 weeks, I actually did manage to attract more voters. So, I mean, hey, that's something. Unfortunately for Doctor, we were just delaying the inevitable on this one. Mirror won with a whopping 65% of the vote, even better than how it looked before. And not much else to say, just another speedrunner realm. Do you love to see it? Maybe. Afterwards, though, is where things get confusing, and I know earlier I sounded kind of grumpy and upset, and I mean, to an extent, I still am because Parasol lost, but how did UFO win here? Everything pointed to Parasol winning. The numbers, the ability, the puppy. and it lost, only getting 45% of the votes. I was kind of rooting for it to maybe beat Mirror too, with enough cheating, cute puppying. Oh well. The match afterwards is also feeling like a coin toss going into it. Beam and Smash both were looking really solid prior, and while it was pretty clear who would win from the get-go, they at least kept it close. The power of Beam Attack memes just wasn't strong enough to compare to Smash, although, again, it was very close. Unfortunately, this was the last interesting match of the tournament. These things tend to end on a whimper since so much happened earlier that everything that comes after is predictable. There was one more surprise before the tournament ended, but I'll get into that one soon. As for the last match of Top 8, despite Poison's insane victory over Tornado, it still wound up losing to Yo-Yo 60-40. I think it's pretty clear Mirror was winning at this point, but considering everything that Poison had just went through, Yo-Yo still looked really good. From there, it was a skip and a hop to top 4 where Mirror, good lord, won against UFO with 70% of the vote. Yo-Yo would seriously have to destroy Smash in order to stand a chance. What's that? The Yo-Yo versus Smash match never even happened? Why? I forgot to make it? Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I thought I made both polls in advance, and when it came time for the final vote, I kinda assumed Yo-Yo had won, which by all means, I'm sure it would have. But that was the last interesting that happened in this tournament that I just talked about a minute ago. Yo-Yo got an accidental final victory before being crushed by Mirror. In fairness, this was definitely the worst Mirror looked for the whole thing, and it still pulled out 64% of the votes. Really goes to show you just how wild Mirror was during this whole thing. And that was the tournament. Mirror won, Yo-Yo got second, and UFO tied with Smash for third. I hope you all enjoyed this little recap of the tournament. I know I focused more on speedrunning, but this was just a super fun thing to host, and I wanted to have it all documented in video form. Hopefully the footage kept you entertained, the speedrunning sensory videos, all that jazz. But with that, I've got more actual speedrunning videos to make, so I have been Klaire. Thank you all so much for watching, and oh, how could I forget? I made a bonus poll where I asked people to vote between Mirror and me, and I won! With the lower percent than Mirror got against Yo-Yo. Wow, people really like Mirror, huh?